Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
So let's just first let me share this piece of newspaper I read in the morning. Okay, this is from Financial Times. So this article says higher inflation is coming and it will hit bondholders. So what this means and why this is going to happen. So let's just jump to the figure, right? And this figure shows us the money supply from end of 19th century to today. So this is in the United States. The blue one is a money supply. The red one is inflation. Again, so you may not know what is inflation is yet, and you even have less sense what is money supply is going to be, but that's going to be the topic we are going to discuss toward the end of the class, right? But here I just want to kind of give you another motivation to stick with me to understand what's going on with macroeconomy and how that is important for you, right? So first of all, here, so you can see there's a spike in money supply. So it's money supply in layman's person's language, or if you just talk to your friends or talk to your parents, basically this just means the central bank they print out more money. And so if the central bank print out more money, meaning there more money is going to go after for a fixed amount of goods, and then naturally, so the price level is going to rise. And naturally means everything is going to get expensive, right? But then, so you may wondering, okay, what caused these money supply increase, and what that means to us, right? So the short answer to the spike in money supply, particularly in 2020, is because of the pandemic. And the pandemic, and then the government wants to do something to help the economy, and then so they find out one thing they can do is to do the stimulus. So meaning they send everybody, including many other things, right? So the main things you probably know is so they extend the unemployment insurance benefit, and also they send everyone a check, right? So you already received 2 checks already, and then so tomorrow President Biden, so once he's sworn in, most likely will receive the 3rd check. But then so where does the money coming from to pay for those checks we receive? And one source coming from the increase in money supply. But then so this money supply, what that means to us, that's going to have inflation. But what does inflation means to us? Means so the price level is going to increase. Everything becomes more expensive. But this is on the surface. Okay. So if we dig into further, and then higher inflation is going to have a significant impact on our daily life in terms of our investment decision, in terms of our saving decision, so on and so forth. All right. So for today, I cannot go into much details. We will wait towards maybe after the second module. I will come back to this topic later. All right. Okay. So again, so this is only for like a motivation for you to pay attention to macroeconomics. Now here, so let's just quickly review what we have discussed last week. All right. So this is our second week. Last week, so we basically review 6 principles in microeconomics, right? So these principles including scarcity of resource, including marginal analysis, including trade-off, including equilibrium, so on and so forth, right? The other 2 things we have discussed is models. What is a model and why we need a model to do our analysis. And then so we also talked about Ceteris paribus. Okay, so this is a very important principle you're going to see repeatedly throughout the study of economics. Okay, the reason why we apply this principle is we want to have a sharp prediction regarding to the underlying mechanism of our economy, right? Because the economy is so complicated, so you must fix one side to see the other side. Just think about in reality or in physical world, you use a particular glasses to see through, to see particular aspect of our world, right? So that's similar. Now the things we left in last class is PBF. So PBF stands for Production Possibility Frontier. And from this, from the title, you can see there are a couple of things. First, this is about what we can produce, right? So this is production, right? And secondly, so this is about frontier, right? Meaning, so what is the maximum we can produce? This frontier, right? Because last class I explained to you what frontier means in plain language or in English, right? And the possibility means what is possible. Okay, and here's that's the definition. So let me just repeat what I said. PBF first is a diagram. So we use a diagram. And then we show the combination of two goods. Okay, so two is going to represent many, right? So this is another example of model. And then, so goods that are possible, what we can possibly produce for society. And lastly, at full employment, meaning so we are in the frontier, right? So there's no resource is idle. No resource are wasted, right? So this is full employment.
I have a quick question.
And then, so we can have use this PBF to answer the question. So probably there's some question from student. So why not we just wait, because we have like 3 blocks, just wait for minutes, and then so once I finish this 20 minutes, and then so we can exchange question, right? Sorry for that. So okay, so we can use PBF to answer questions like how much can we produce, what will cost to change our mix of production, and does it make sense to import goods from somewhere else? The last one is about trade, international trade, right? Or in the news, you probably heard about globalization, okay? Or in other words, so this PBF is going to help us to understand, is globalization meaningful? Is globalization will help us or not? But certainly, so to answer that is a multi-dimensional questions. So here we only focus on a particular aspect, economic again, okay? Right, so now let's look at the PBF. First of all, this is a diagram, right? And secondly, so we use this diagram to look at how much we can produce or mix of things, 2 things. Here, so we use the example says the economy is going to produce 2 different goods. One is a Dreamliner, the other is small jet. You can think about Boeing company, right? Or you, as you wish, you can switch this to Conagra, right? So they may produce soybean-based goods versus corn-based goods, right? So it's up to you. So you can feel free to switch whatever goods you like. But here, this is a simplification. We use these 2 goods to represent many, right? So now we start with this row, and this table just tells you how much we can produce. And this row just tells us if the company allocate all resource in producing Dreamliner, and then so they can produce 30. And then in this immediate means they can produce 0 small jet, because so they have allocated all resource towards here, right? So this is the first row. And then so we put this first row on this diagram. On the diagram, we have small jet versus Dreamliner, right? So in this 2 dimension. Okay? And then we put this first row as a dot in this diagram. Now, if we move down to this table, meaning so we start to allocate resource away from Dreamliner to small jet. So we have a mix of 2 goods, right? And then so you can see there's a trade-off. What is the trade-off? In order to gain small jet, you must give up something. And here, what you have to give up? You have to give up Dreamliner, right? And then so you can see now if you gain 20 small jet, you give up 15 Dreamliner. Okay, and actually, so what you give up later, you're going to see. So this is called opportunity cost. Okay, this is what you give up, right? And so we keep moving down to the table. So this is the second row, and we keep moving down to the row And eventually, we put all the information inside this table on this diagram. So now we have 4 possible points. But certainly, you can move a smaller scale. Say, for example, you increase from 0 to 1. And then the probability is we are going to hear, right? Okay, but to simplify, we just look at 4 representative data points from this table. And then, so we connect those dots, and then we end up with this straight line. So this straight line is PPF. Okay, before I move to the next slide, I want to emphasize, so not the PPF is not always a straight line, but here we look at simplified version. But later I'm going to show you, so in real world, so the PPF is not a straight line, it's going to look differently. And I will also explain to you why it may look differently. And here, so this straight line actually means the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is constant. Okay, so this opportunity cost of increasing the production of small jet in terms of Dreamliner will be constant. And this constant is going to reflect by the straight line. Okay, so I will come back this again later. Okay. This line or this diagram is called a PPF, and the particular F stands for frontier, meaning what is possible. Now, to further understand what this frontier means, let's say, for example, we look at point C. Point C compared with, let's say, point here. Let's just give this a name. Say E. If you compare C versus E, E apparently dominates C. In the sense, at point E, you produce same amount of Dreamliner, but you produce more small jets. So E strictly dominates C. And actually, so we also call C is inefficient. And why this is inefficient is because we can improve upon C. Right? On the other hand, if we look at D, D dominates everywhere else inside this diagram, inside here. Right? But however, D is not feasible. Okay, let me write down. So C is inefficient, but D is infeasible. So infeasible means so you cannot reach this point. So this is beyond your capacity. Simply look at here. So if you allocate all your resource to Dreamliner, you only produce 30. Now you want to produce more than 30. This is not possible. Right? On the other hand, so if you allocate all your resources to small jet, you can produce 40. Right? Yes, it's more smaller than this, but you ask too many Dreamliners. So this is beyond your capacity. Okay. Now, let me explain to you opportunity costs in a little bit detail. They just follow the same table we just saw in previous slides. And I mentioned opportunity costs. Okay. What is opportunity cost? So basically, we start with producing Dreamliner only. So that's where we start. And then so you want to expand in small jet business, right? And you want to increase small jet. And then there's a trade-off. What is the trade-off? You have to give up some Dreamliners. But then, so how much you give up, now we need to calculate. And this calculation is going to give out the opportunity cost, which measures what must be given up in order to get a goods. Or here, what you must give up to produce small jet, right? look at here. So you gain 20 small jets. And how much you give up? You give up 30 minus 15, right? So this on the numerator is cost, and the denominator is benefit. In order to gain 20 small jet, you give up 30 minus 15 Dreamliner. Right? So this is how we calculate the opportunity cost, which gives us 3/4 of Dreamliner. This is the opportunity cost of small jet in terms of Dreamliners. Right? And certainly, so we can do the same calculation for opportunity cost of Dreamliner. Okay, and the easiest way, we just move from the bottom to the top. So we move from here to here. And similarly, we can calculate the opportunity cost of Dreamliner. Right? Again, so we use cost divided by the benefit. Now, so you want again 9 minus 0 Dreamliners. And you must give up some small jets. Right? So how much you give up? You give up 40 minus 28. All right. And then so you can immediately find out this is going to be 4/3. So this is the opportunity cost of Dreamliner in terms of small jet. Right? And so this is opportunity cost. Now, to help you to understand this opportunity cost, let's look at these practice questions. Okay. Suppose you are stranded on an island. Luckily, this island is rich in clams and mangoes. If you devote all of your time to harvesting clams, you can get 100 in a week. If you use all of your time to collect mangoes, you can find 200 mangoes in a week. Assume it is possible to collect fractional amount of both goods and draw a sketch of a production profitability frontier for a week. Okay? And also I want you to place mangoes on the X and clams on the Y. And finally, calculate the opportunity cost of each good. Right. So let's use 200 mango, 100. Let's use a notebook. Right. So we have mango on the X axis and the clams on the Y axis. So if you spend all your time to harvesting mango, you have 200. Otherwise, you get 100 clams. Right, and then so this is your PPF. You connect these two dots. This is your PPF. Now, what is the opportunity cost? Start with mango. And then so we move from C to N. Right? So if you move from this point to this point, let's just label the A to B. Okay. The way we calculate opportunity cost, you use cost divided by benefit. And then so what is the cost? In order to produce 200 mango, you give up clams, which is 100. And how much you get? You get 200 mango. On the other hand, so what is the opportunity cost of clams? Again, it's cost divided by benefit. And then so here, what is the cost? So now we move from A to B, B to A. Right? So you give up 200 mangoes, you get 100 clams. Right? So that's how we calculate the opportunity cost. Right? So now let's take a 5-minute break. In the meantime, I answer your questions.